afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Pollinator Report. We're here today with Thane Maynard, Director of the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens, and Pollination. This is our second live webinar of a 7-part series. We're also joined by Dominique Gonçalves from the Gonzalo National Park from Mozambique. She's streaming from the UK. Thane and I are streaming from the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Nice to see you, Thane and Dominique.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.
Thank you.
It's great, isn't it? Everybody's in for a real treat, and I just want to thank everyone for coming and joining us for this amazing presentation. And I would like to turn it over to Dominique and Thane right now, and I'll be back for Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justina, and thanks to you and Osmia B for bringing this great webinar series together. As you know, and I think folks that were on the last time know, the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden is very proud to be one of the most visited botanical gardens in the world. And we have a lot of great programs like the one you mentioned, Pollination, where we have a great Plants for Pollinators program. And I can't think of a better presenter than today for us to have a chance to be with my friend Dominique Gonçalves from Mozambique. You know, these days when you look at the newspaper, all the news seems to be bad news about nature. People talk about climate change, or they talk about the loss of biodiversity, or the fact that the Arctic ice is melting. And rarely does it make headlines when good things happen. But in the 21st century, what will happen that is good is something called ecosystem restoration, to take areas that had very hard times, maybe from mismanagement, maybe from poaching, maybe from war and poverty, and put in a system where people can benefit and they can work together to bring those areas back. Because you can ask any biologist and they'll tell you that humans depend on natural areas, on all of the services that those areas provide. All the resources we use, even in a big city, all come from nature. So this is the century we will have to learn how to be smarter and live in harmony with nature. And I cannot think of a better story to be heard than Dominique's about Gorongosa National Park in Mozambique. There are a number of books and films about it. I love this one. It's from my office. It's called A Window on Eternity. It's by American biologist Edward Wilson and his time spent at Gorongosa, where they are studying this ecosystem as it is brought back. And the amazing thing is, it's not just elephants or lions, but this idea of pollination and even of bees play a big role in bringing back the ecosystem, as well as being important to the economy of people that live in that area. Dominique Gonçalves is a young woman, but she has vast experience. She's played a big role in the work at Gorongosa. She's working on a graduate degree in England. She has spoken at the Cincinnati Zoo in our prestigious Barrows Conservation Lecture Series. And I imagine most people watching have certainly seen her in National Geographic magazine a number of times. All of that is for good reason, because you will be impressed today. If Jane Goodall was still as young as Dominique, she would remind you of Jane. Jane Goodall has long been a good friend of mine, and Dominique has the very same spirit. And she started very young, as did Jane. So I'm hopeful for the future, not just in Gorongosa, but in Africa and around the world, because of young people that show the way. They don't talk about what needs to be done. They show us how we can do it. So we're going to have a great presentation. And Dominique, it's so nice to see you again. And I look forward to hearing your presentation.
Hi, Thane. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction and to talk about Gorongosa and our work. It's great to be back to the zoo, although virtually. I've been really looking forward for today. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and present to you, and I can't wait for our conversation after. All right, I will start, and today, as Thane said, Gorongosa National Park is this place where we don't only look at conservation itself only, but we also look a lot on our human side and human development. In fact, we say that in Gorongosa we see conservation and human development as two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
So today, I'd like to talk about the sweet link that we have for coexistence and sustainable development in Gorongosa National Park. And for those of you who doesn't know where Mozambique and Gorongosa is, we are in the southern Africa. Mozambique is located in southern Africa. It's a long country of a vast coastline. And Gorongosa National Park is located in the center of Mozambique. And more precisely, Gorongosa National Park is really located at the end or the base of the African Great Rift Valley. And because of that location, just on the end, on the tip of it, Gorongosa National Park has many habitats. It's like a mosaic of almost every conceivable habitat, some from Afro-montane forests, from woodlands, savannas, grasslands, a floodplain, gorges, everything. And all this connection, all this mosaic of habitat, of course, brings a lot to the place. We have some unique things, unique species in our place, endemic species. We have a vast, a very rich biodiversity, from tiny things to huge things. And we also have a little bit of a rainforest. As you can see, there's a shaded gray area around is what we call our buffer zone. Our buffer zone is our sustainable development area where our communities live. And in this area, although of course hunting for bushmeat and trophy is prohibited, but people can have their crops, they can do agriculture, sustainable agriculture, they can have their livestock, they can harvest natural resources sustainably. And it is in this area where we focus most of our efforts in terms of human development and all other programs we have. So let's talk about the little things around the world, as Professor Wilson would say. Let's talk about these. And it's a great pleasure to be talking today for the pollination. And guess what? We in Gorongosa, we in Mozambique too, we are located in a very kind of epicenter of the origin of the species Apis mellifera, which is the one who produces honey. Although we're not really sure yet which species we might have, because we could have the Apis mellifera scumata or the other ones. And it is hard to tell, apparently, for the biologists that really look deep into them, but we are now trying to put some effort trying to find out which species we having at least. And we're using all these genetic approaches to really find out. It's amazing how technology has been helping us to go deeper into species and taxonomy nomenclature. And we also consider a lot of these other bee kind of species that actually has no sting. So this one doesn't sting. The other one actually, it is the famous African honeybee. And this one doesn't have the sting, but also produces honey, but they say that it's less than comparing to the other one. So to talk about beekeeping, our communities around Gorongosa, it's always been using traditional beekeeping methods, which includes basically, as what you see in this photo, it includes using the bark of a tree to make the hive and use these traditional techniques. However, this can be quite destructive, as by taking out the bark of a tree, we expose the inside tissues of the tree, and they're more exposed to parasites and many things, and that can really impact the survival of the individual and so the species. So see, all this time that our community has been using this kind of traditional beekeeping techniques, has been a little bit harmful for our ecosystems too. Also, the way they would extract, sometimes they would just burn everything and burn down the tree, which would actually make us have less trees. However, since the restoration and the honey program started, we are promoting a beekeeping with sustainable practices, and we're using the hives that are made by local and sustainable source wood. For example, we're now working with 350 beekeepers, and 50 of them are women. We just get trained And this is all over our buffer zone, especially near the mountain and in the north and east of the park. So all these women have been now trained, and we are promoting this honey chain, and we give this amazing support, technical support. They're trained and everything, and monitoring and everything, and then technical support for when they need to harvest their honey. And was just a week ago. They're just starting to harvest their honey, and this is how delicious it looks. And from here, of course, we have our small Casa de Mel, which is actually a honey house. We are now with huge plans of creating a bigger Casa de Mel, because of the quantities of honey we're getting from our communities. I forgot to say that this honey is then bought by our sustainable development by the honey in a marketplace, and we create this chain for our farmers as well. So from this Casa de Mel, our honey looks like this, and it's widely consumed, especially around around Beira, Sofala, and in Mozambique in general. So unfortunately, our honey is not yet, I believe it's not yet sent or sold internationally because of all the tramits, all the legal things that we need to get before starting to export honey. Well, that was the sustainable development approach, looking at everyone in all the other communities. However, it's funny that we can link these bees, these little things that run in the world, with these big, majestic, also big terrestrial mammals in the world, and these are our elephants. For those who don't know, Gorongosa elephants has a very different story. Gorongosa once had about 2,500 elephants roaming freely, although we in Mozambique we had a 60-year civil conflict in which most of protected areas in our country lost most of their biodiversity. And in Gorongosa case, we lost 95% of our large mammals, for example. And one of the species that really suffered, one of the populations that really suffered were elephants. Our elephants were decimated, they were killed for their ivory and to buy more guns to fight the war. And of course, the meat was used to feed the soldiers. And so we lost, and from 2,500, by the end of the war, we only have about less than 200 elephants. However, since the restoration started, we have provided a better space and more protection, a better, more habitats, cleaner, protected habitat for our elephants. And without the stress of being poached, our elephant population is coming back. And now we have about 800 elephants. However, as our elephant population is coming back, they still only use 10% of their natural range in Gorongosa, but they are in high proximity with a lot of people in our buffer zone. And that brings a big issue, which is actually one of our biggest challenges for elephant conservation around the world today. This is what we call the human-elephant conflict or wildlife conflict. In places where we have this area where we have a protected area, natural world, and then people next to it, there's a space which we call an interface. We can also be the forest edges or the buffer zone or any area with this proximity. And this place, this interface is what we call the rolling zone of attraction, because many things can happen there. It is not impermeable for animals and for people, especially if the park is not fenced. In case of Gorongosa, we do not have a fenced barrier, very solid barrier. And the Pungwe River is our southern limit between the park and the buffer zone. As you can see, for large mammals such as elephants and maybe carnivores, that is not really a great barrier. Even with the Pungwe River is really high, elephants are great swimmers. So what happens is they leave the park and they roam into people's farms and people's houses, and that can create a lot of negative interaction. they can eat the crops in the farms, they can disrupt the infrastructure such as houses and food storages, and less frequently, but it might happen that they might injure or kill people. The same way, also people, because of not having solid barrier, people can get into the park and also harm elephants, and people can actually kill and injure elephants in retaliation because of conflict. So this is a huge problem, and it tends to grow. In fact, in most recently years, we are seeing a number of human-elephant conflict increasing, which is a reflection of our growing population, but also on the both sides, on people and on elephants. There's other costs related to this that can be the cost that we don't really see. We call an indirect cost, such as trauma from the people who lost a loved one or had a very bad interaction with an elephant. The cost of people not being able to sleep at night and having to protect the farms, or the cost for kids of having to go to school the next day without having rested properly or without really having eaten properly because the family lost everything for elephants. So human-elephant conflict really poses a great risk for food security and economic security in our communities. And it is because of this also that in 2018, with great support of friends and partners, we started the Gorongosa Elephant Ecology Project. And in this project, we decided to call it lead female elephants, so matriarchs, and also recently, like in this picture, we call it 10 male elephants. So because of GPS tracking collars, we can see where they are in the landscape, what they're up to, and that gives us a lot of information. For example, if a family group is using a lot of one area, what that means, and also knowing where they are allow us to better protect them, for example, their habitat and any other thing related to it. Because of those colors, we've seen where elephants have been, and we've seen the entry points also to our community side. And as you can see, in these kind of entry points or highways that we are planning to act to help mitigate this problem. And we are doing this by using nature, using pollinators, using bees. So it's a live strategy, is using bees and the cooperation between them to help mitigate this conflict between people and elephants. So it's what we call a beehive fence, which promotes healthy human and elephant coexistence. So how a beehive fence work is, as it shows over there, is just a beehives suspended and linked by a rope and closing an entry or around the farm or something. So as the elephant tries to pass by, it touches and it moves all the hives, agitating all the bees, and they all come out and they sting elephants. You might think, well, but elephants have massive, thick skin. However, they also do have very sensitive areas of their body, such as the eyes, the back of the ears, the trunks, the belly. And these was tested starting in 2011 by Dr. Lucy King in Kenya, and she proved how that was effective. And it's been now used in many places in Africa and Asia. In Gorongosa, in Mozambique, we tested it, and was thanks to this work by one student who came and tested the beehive fence approach, and it showed to be very effective. As you can see, in a year without the beehives, the number of crossings would increase, and with the beehives, it actually decreased. And now we are implementing it. That's picture of Pedro. This is this year, and we're working with our community collaborators to really implement in a bigger scale than just an experiment. And what it is has shown us. Oh, I'm trying to play the video. Oh, yeah. What it is shown us is that it is being effective. At least the elephants are learning, and they've been curious. They've been first trying to decide what is this and why can't I pass through this. And sometimes they do try, and they do manage to pass through it, and sometimes they do kind of see that is impossible or is better not, because it is painful. So it is shown to be effective. The bees are working well. So our elephants are learning that maybe that's not a good thing to do. And the beauty of this approach is that we also think and work with our communities, because this is not something that we just bring and leave it there and we working like that. No, we need our community collaborators to do that with us, and in fact they are the ones who do the most of the work. They are the ones who who take care of the beehives. They are the ones who clean it. They are the ones to harvest the honey. They keep an eye on the new openings or not of the elephants trying to break the beehive. So they are the essential part of this. Without them, without my colleagues, we wouldn't be able to do or to have this success in mitigation. And the nice and rewarding thing is this sweet reward, which is the honey that they bee guards provide. This with them showing some of the honey I have tried straight away from that plate, and it was very delicious honey. This is how it looks like, and right after harvesting. And I apologize because I completely forgot the name they call it when it's in that stage. They have a specific name for it. But the new thing, which is very excited for me and for the team, is that we now managed to have 15 more women joining. When that team started, we only had one woman and she was not attending because probably she was the only woman. But now we managed to have extra 15 women. And this is a huge step because beekeeping in some communities around Gorongosa is seen as a main thing to do, because women are afraid of bees or they think in dangers. So imagine working with bees and elephants would be another level. But today, this is how our team looks like. This is how we're showing that it's really helping us to break some barriers, especially and some gender biases in our community. However, it's not always flowers and honey. We've been having a few challenges like this. If you can see it, this is a beehive that was full and then it got flooded. And this was just in March this year, actually February this year. It was a year of normal rain, and this is what happened. So yeah, we lost about 15 of our hives, and they were all full of bees, and we lost our bees, and also our fences. You know, we lost the fences, so no mitigation in those places. So these are things that happen, and it's when we have to really look at the bigger picture, because we might be doing little things here and locally, but the things that we can't really control because comes from above. And if people, as they say, if people and wildlife have to coexist, we have to adapt. We have to make sure that we both have room to roam and to have our schools, to keep our ecosystem healthy and to produce our food. And we need to live together. We need to coexist. Also, talking about bigger problems, this is takes me to the next stage, which is what are you looking at is the Mount Gorongosa, the other place that is part of the park. This Mount Gorongosa was once covered completely by rainforest. However, we've been losing this rainforest, and we decided to act because, to be honest, most of the water catchment, not only for the park, but even for the towns around Gorongosa, comes from this mountain because it's a rainforest. It's constantly raining. And we're losing a lot of our rainforest and our endemic species, and we decided to act. And how? The green dots you see over there is what we call the shade-grown coffee. So what we're doing, we are growing coffee under the trees, the shade of native trees. So we're doing reforestation by planting native trees, and under them we're planting coffee. So This is Arabica coffee, and our coffee really helps also our community. This coffee plantation, it is basically taking care of our communities from the mountain who live there. There were farmers already farming in the mountain, but now what they're doing, they basically have a line of the crop and a line of coffee, crop and coffee. So it's what we call agroforestry. And it's been helping a lot. It's been bringing also a lot of gender equality. It is bringing more revenue, alternative income for our people in the mountain. And the mountain is not an easy place because it has been for a few years a hotspot for it's been for a few years a hotspot for conflict and war. But our coffee plants managed to survive because of our community that was living there and managed to take care of those little plants even in times of conflict. And now we're seeing these fruits. So this is our Gorongosa coffee, and I say every bag counts because 100% of the profits on each of these rows goes to something specific. So, for example, Girls Around the World goes 100% of the profit goes for girls' education, girls' club in Gorongosa buffer zone, and we have a goal of keeping 20,000 girls in school. And Elephants Never Forget, we have a goal of 250,000 large mammals thriving in Gorongosa, and every profit made by that goes to wildlife and conservation in terms of law enforcement, tracking device, science, and everything we need to keep our wildlife thriving. And Speak for the Trees, which is a dark roast, goes for the rainforest trees that we're planting, goes to the restoration of our rainforest. So this is where you could learn more about our coffee and our Gorongosa and our Instagram account and everything we do. And this is how we see that it might help us one day to still sustain our conservation effort, but also our human development efforts, because we need to be able to be sustainable, to stand for ourselves, and to live together with people and wildlife, and we need to adapt to these changes. So that's it. This is just an example how we learn from taking an example of bees, for example, and how they cooperate and work together. We're doing that also with our communities by bringing all this coexistence and adapting to new challenges and taking new paths for future. Thank you.
Thanks for a great presentation, because I've been lucky to hear you speak before, and it's neat to catch up 2 years later about all the new work being done at Gorongosa, important to the people that live there, as well as, of course, the wildlife. And your coffee seems to be going great. We want to get that so we could sell that here in Cincinnati, so we'll have to work on that. I had a couple of questions. I saw the women in the program and they had on masks. How is it going in Mozambique and at Gorongosa in the midst of the pandemic?
Well, of course, pandemic is affecting everyone, right? And we also affected. Since it started, at least in the country, we quickly took the emergency state, so more restrictive measures, and that's one of the reasons that many of us couldn't really go home and do some work. And because we also want to protect our communities, we don't want to, for example, bring things there, because then it will be awful for everyone, especially for us and our work. And yeah, we did what we could. We kept all the things that have to be done, following the rules. We actually started to make masks for our communities. Some of our programs had to be delayed. For example, Girls Club, because the girls can't really meet, is against the rules, and all these things. But we're slowly adapting. I mean, we know, we're optimistic. We know that this is not going to go away maybe tomorrow. So we can't just stop. Our community needs us. Otherwise, it will be worse in terms of poverty and all the programs. So we're just adapting to it.
Yeah. Well, it's a heartening story, though. I loved your story of the elephants and the bees with the fence. I've seen that in Africa. In this last fall, a year ago, I went to northern India and I saw something I never thought I'd see. To try to keep the elephants off of the rail lines, they, on loudspeakers, play the sound of honeybees buzzing very loudly. Actually, not honeybees, but Africanized bees that are much tougher. super loud. You can hear it from like half a mile away. And they play that in order to try to keep the elephants off the tracks when trains are coming. Because in that part of India, the trains really go quite fast and elephants can get killed by it. But my understanding from talking to the scientists there is that elephants are very smart, and when the bees are sounding, they don't get on the tracks. So that's heartening. And I loved all your stories about bees. You know, at our botanical garden, we have a fun program called Plants for Pollinators, and people can get their gardens certified. We have almost 2,000 people from around North America who have certified their native gardens to plant all kinds of things that are good for many pollinators. So sometimes honeybees, but also, you know, monarch butterflies and lots of others. And it's a heartening way for people to make a little difference, but right where they live. And I know that's certainly true everywhere and true in Mozambique, just as it is here. And if folks are viewing this, they can connect with our zoo and get more information. We have tricky little information on how you can do that. But I know you have some great links as well to, and I think we're going to put some of those on the screen, of links to get to your programs about your coffee, which is important. Everybody loves coffee. But also I think you have a GoFundMe site, right, for the elephant work?
Yeah, I do. That was a very nice thing. A friend of the park, actually, this young man, he decided to create that to help. And this was just also another example of how everyone can help, even not being there, and you know, from their own house and everything. And I was just so amazed by it. Yes, so Pedro created that GoFund campaign to help Elephants Project. Yeah.
Well, you know what's great about that is if enough people give a little bit, it can make a big difference. I hadn't been familiar with that, but now that I know about it after this webinar, I'll contribute to it. And I encourage anybody who's participating to do the same thing, because even if just say $10, if enough people do it, it'll go a long, long way. So that's an exciting thing as well, as is the whole protection of the park, and just as important of working with the people locally on all of these programs, your pollinator programs, your coffee program, as well as your education for girls. I imagine if the folks watching were to buy your coffee and choose the ones, they might very much prefer the one that helps girls go to school, because all over the world, I think, the more that women can be educated and empowered heads for good things. It leads to young women like yourself playing a big role. And I'm the father of 3 daughters, so I know that women know how to get it done.
Thank you.
Well, this is a very fun and exciting time for conservation. You know, when I asked about the pandemic, your point was a good one, which is this has changed things and how we do them, but it can't stop those things. Because if it completely stopped all the progress you've made for those local communities around the park, those might change and you could go back to whether that's clear cutting or poaching or others. So to keep the programs going is valuable for the elephants, and hopefully we can get the coffee part going as well, because that would be certainly heartening all the way around. So tell us a little bit about you. I know you're in the UK right now. Are you working on a graduate degree?
Yes, I am. I am in the UK, in Canterbury, actually, because I am doing my PhD studies. So in biodiversity management, focusing and actually in human-elephant conflict and coexistence.
That is so great. Well, you know, it's interesting because elephants are one of the most beloved animals in the world. You know, there are religions that love them, the Hindus and the Buddhists. Everywhere I've gone, people love them. But as you said, they're big and they're herbivores. And if you lived near Gorongosa and you had a farm, the last thing you'd want is an elephant in the middle of your farm. So studying elephant-human conflict and how to mitigate that is very important. And I'm assuming when you're back in Mozambique and your team in Gorongosa, you work a lot with local farmers.
Yeah, and to be honest, not just the conflict, and we tend to only mostly focus on these very quantitative things that come out on the ice in terms of conflict or coexistence. But as I say in my talk, it's like there's other hidden things or other impacts that we don't really pay attention. We'll focus on how much people is losing because of conflict, but how about how people are feeling and the mental health and other things, people's perceptions in terms of elephants, in terms of conflict, in terms of using beehive mitigation strategies. It plays a massive role because every time we go with one mitigation strategy, people put their time, their effort, their hopes, and then if that doesn't work, what does that mean for the community? What does it mean for people to tolerate or not elephants and other wildlife? So goes a bit long way, and it's important that we start looking at these things with more detail. So going back, when I go back, actually, this work is not only done by myself and my project and the collaborators. It is a group of us in the park. So it's how do we say? It's a collaborative approach between all departments. So there's the science, which I'm part of science. There's conservation. There's sustainable development. So when we do the coexistence work, it's like all teams of the park are included and our community collaborators. Although, as I say, they are the big part of it, but we also provide the technical things, the expertise, the materials, and we just work with them. And for example, that honey, then our sustainable development buy it in a market price and create that chain also. So now in Mozambique, we're consuming not just the honey from Gorongosa, but we're also consuming coexistence honey, that comes from those beehive fences. And it's really nice and warming to see when they are harvesting or they're seeing that the fence is working. But we are very cautious to always say that might not be a definite thing, might not be a definite solution, because as you say, elephants are extremely smart, and for us it's always trying to keep a step ahead of elephants and trying to predict what they're going to do, how long this is going to last until they manage to find another way around. So it's going to be a constant thing. I always say that coexistence is not ever going to be really in equilibrium. It's going to be a dynamic equilibrium, if I can say like that. Yeah.
That's right. It's an ongoing effort. Well, Dominique, we have many, many people writing in questions. So Jaron Orwig wrote in, what finally got more women to join the beekeeping group? What did your team do, or what happened within the community to help break down the men's work stigma?
Right, that's a great question, because I confess that when we had only one woman and I couldn't really realize why she was not being part of it so much, and I was not in the ground. It took a lot of time until one day I was in the ground, and our supervisor, ground supervisor, he took me to her house. She was just about to have a baby, and we talked about some issues. And but just by talking, and she had other friends and family that were like, we would like to be part of it. And we realized that actually was mostly probably when we were recruiting, because when working with community, you always have to obey some rules. For example, you first talk to the traditional leader or the leader of the region, that then is gonna walk down until you get to the person, or he's the one who called the people to come and apply. And probably that was one of the things that the leader's perception was, that was a man's work, and maybe wouldn't want to have women involved. And we had to talk through all these little things and make very specific that we wanted women to be part of that and have that kind of conversation. The other thing might also be that, for example, would be nice if this person could write or this and that, but it's also another gender bias thing, because in this community, men will be more likely to know how to write and read than women. And it actually took also some example, the role model thing, just bringing some other women that do that and say, see, they are doing it, it's possible, and just have this kind of more warming conversations. And I remember many times with the team, when there were only men, many times I talked to them, I expressed how frustrated and sad I was that I was the only woman working there, and they could understand that they are also fathers and of girls and everything. They're all older than me, and after many conversations, and one day they just also said, we're ready to have women to work with us in this. And we we learn from each other and everything. And they've been very nice and accommodating and everything. So it was many, many little steps until
Mhm.
break that.
And that's what it takes is perseverance and a commitment to moving forward. Mark Grosser wrote in, are the bees equally effective at impacting male and female elephants? Or what about juvenile elephants? Are some more scared than others?
That's a great question, and I don't really know the right answer for that. I would say though that in case of Gorongosa, the ones that really we may see, because you have a geofence, which is this geographic barrier, virtual barrier, and every elephant that has a collar, when it comes out of pass through that geofence, we get an alert. So we can see that X, Y, and Z are coming out. And we have in the Elephant Ecology Project have 10 females, lead females, and 10 males. And it's very rare to see the females breaking the geofence. And every time I see that, I have been very curious to see where she is. And it's really never on the community side. They just go to the river, probably for drinking and back. So I don't really know, but I believe it would be the same, because actually this bee experiment when Dr. Lucy King did in Kenya, she just placed it, there's also this audio of bees after observing in the wild, and the family group would just panic and run away. So it was same for female, male, juvenile, adult elephant. So I believe it would be the same.
Yeah, I think I jumped the gun. So Justina, jump in. You please jump in and do the Q&A and everything.
No, I enjoyed your presentation and your conversation. Thank you. It's beautiful what you're doing. Thank you so much. We have a question here from Teresa. It's a two-part question. Are the people who are propagating honeybees in apiaries managing so they can split them into more hives before bees abscond, so that there is a ready supply of colonies to replace those destroyed? Is this practical? Why or why not? And the last part of the question is, are there high incidents of honeybee attacks, or are humans coexisting in a safe manner? That's a big one.
Yeah, very big question. We have been very careful, because when we do the beekeeping with either with the Coexistence team or just the people knowing buffer zone, they don't just do them by themselves. We have our really experienced technicians in the field that actually show, and they monitor, and they go with them to all that. And yeah, we're ready for the need for extra beehives and everything. And in case of, although I remember an incident that we had storage beehives, and the bees just went there to the storage and colonized it. It was a nightmare for the technicians, because it was not supposed to happen, but the bees just decided to go to the storage and be there. In case of women, people and bees, we haven't yet have any incident, like conflict incident between them, although people have been very careful. We are all afraid of bees at home, especially African onion bees. People are being very careful, but it is possible to happen sometimes, especially if it's at night or something. So everyone is very aware that the beehive is over there, the bee fence, so be careful, don't go through that. We once had to move a beehive fence because it was in people's way to a farm or something. So yeah, we've been keeping these things practical.
That's great. Let's see, we have another from Polly. Will the bee fences be replaced, or is it still flooded where you lost your bees?
Oh yeah, we replaced it. And I actually didn't say in this talk that now we are actually incrementing the number of beehive fences, because it has been effective, and our communities are actually wanting to have more, because they like, we stop it in that area, let's do it in this area. And there's people saying, I also want to be part of this. That's why actually we had to increase the number of our collaborators, and that was open to have women. So we are now on the way to have about, by last year, we had 200 beehives. divided in various fences. So one fence can have one beehive, or our longest fence had 12 hives, for example. And we are now in a way of having 600 beehives that is going to be divided in more fences. So yeah, we are growing slowly.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a success story. It really is wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Thane.
You bet.
I really appreciate you and everyone here at the Cincinnati Zoo. And thank you so much again, Dominique. I know the time difference and we really just, you have a busy schedule. So thank you from everyone here for such a lovely presentation. So thank you. There are a few other people I'd like to thank that helped us promote this webinar series. I'd like to thank our partners, Simple Truth, Kroger Simple Truth, of course, the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens, Pollination, the Plant for Pollinator Challenge that Thane talked about. I'd also like to thank our other supporters, Ron Wilson Radio in the Garden at 55 KRC, Wild Birds Unlimited in Cincinnati, Coffee Emporium here in Cincinnati, Bee Haven Honey. They have a location downtown, White Oak Nurseries, and of course, Gorongosa National Park. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And I'd like to thank Christina Anderson, Thane Maynard's executive assistant, for her support, and working with her is wonderful. I just really appreciate her as well. And thank you, Farfaris, for being our technical support here and helping us help us with running the webinar smoothly. And I also like to thank Hannah for all her graphic work. It took a team to put this all together, and I'm very appreciative to everyone, and thank you. And I'd like to, if you have any last words to share with our listeners, that would be amazing. Any other last words, Thane?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to jump in. Justina, thank you for hosting this again. It's really a fun webinar to get people from all over participating in it. I've seen lots and lots of questions coming through from across North America, so that part's neat. And no kidding, Dominique, it is always an inspiration to see you and to hear your story. Good luck finishing up your PhD. You've certainly gotten a lot done in a short amount of time, but the work you're doing is very important. So thank you.
Thank you for having me again, and it's been a pleasure. I was really excited to talk about this, and it's good to see you guys after 2 years. So
we look forward to you coming next year.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sure.
We'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. The Pollination. Please join us next month for Dr. Olivia Carroll will be back about talking. She'll be discussing native bees again. So please join us. I'll be hosting the show with Christina Anderson, and we'll discuss how you can support and increase native bee populations. So thank you, everyone. Wonderful holiday. Thank you again, Thane and Dominique. Be safe and healthy and have a wonderful holiday.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.